What's the verse? What have we got on the board? Okay, good. We've got an interesting verse today. I guess every day is an interesting verse. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janarandana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janarandana. Jamuna Ravana Chari. Jamuna Ravana Chari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari. Girivadadhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Ravana Chari. Jamuna Ravana Chari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hare. Kunjabi Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajika Jaya Asto Tarasati Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Maipur Navadvip Dham Ki Sri Purushottam Chitra Ki Sri Ganga Mai Ki Jai Sri Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to CC Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Could somebody bring some tissues, please? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Canto 9, Liberation. Chapter 13, the dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. Text number 4. Is that right? Shishya vyatikramam viksha tam nivatya gato guruhu ashapat patata deho nime panditamanitaha shishya vyatikramam vikshya tam nivatya gato guruhu ashapat patata deho nime panditamaninaha shishya vyatikramam vikshya tam nivatya gato guru ashapat patata deho nime panditamaninaha. Shishya vyatikramam vikshya tam nivatya gato guru ashapat patata deho nime panditamaninaha shishya vyatikramam vikshya tam nivatya gato guruhu ashapat patata deho nime panditamaninaha shishya vyatikramam viksha tam nivatya gato guruhu Panditamanitaha shishya vyatikramam viksha tam nivaja gato guru, ashapat patata deho, nime pandita maninaha, shishya vyatikramam viksha, tam nivaja gato guru, ashapat patata deho, nime pandita maninaha, shishya vyatikramam. The disciples' deviation from the order of the Guru, Viksha, observing, Tam, the performance of Jagya by Indra, Niravatya, after finishing, Agataha, when he returned, Guru, Vishishta Muni, Ashapat, he cursed Nimi Maharaj, Patatat, may it fall down, Deha, the material body, Nime, of Maharaj Nimi, Panditamaninaha, who considers himself so learned as to disobey the order of his spiritual master. After completing the sacrificial performance for King Indra, the spiritual master Vasishta returned and found his disciple Maharaj Nimi had disobeyed his instructions. Thus, Vasishta cursed him, saying, "May the material body of Nimi, who considers himself learned, immediately fall." No purport. Nimi pratidado shapam guruve dharmavartine tavapi patata deho lopad dharmam ajanataha. For unnecessarily cursing him when he had committed no offence, Maharaj Nimi counter-cursed his spiritual master. For the sake of getting contributions from the King of Heaven, he said, "You have lost your religious intelligence. Therefore, I pronounce this curse. Your body also will fall." Purport: the religious principle for a Brahmana is that he should not be greedy at all. In this case, however, for the sake of more lucrative remunerations from the King of Heaven, Vasishta neglected Maharaj Nimi's request on this planet, and when Nimi performed the sacrifice with other priests, Vasishta unnecessarily cursed him. When one is infected by contaminated activities, his power, material or spiritual, reduces. Although Vasishta was the spiritual master of Maharaj Nimi, because of his greed, he became fallen. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmaye Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahayam Tadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yad Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishvaram. Hi, Boyari. Welcome. Right, so what's going on here? This is a rather interesting turn of events that Vasishtha Muni, who's the guru of Maharaj Nimi, asked his disciple to wait until he'd returned from performing a yajna with Indra, the king of heaven. Maharaj Nimi wanted to perform a sacrifice. Right? And as is explained in the previous verse, he had a good reason. He had a good reason to perform a yajna. Right? And Prabhupada explains how, and he quotes a Vedic aphorism, you know, the material body is temporary, so anything that accrues to the material body is limited and temporary and ultimately destroyed by time, right? But the pious activities, and certainly spiritual activities, should be performed immediately, right? Because the benefits from the performance of our, especially bhajana mukhi sukriti, right? Bhakti sukriti, the benefits from that endure forever, right? Neha bikramanaso sti pratyavayona vidyate. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, right? There is no loss or diminution from the performance of one's spiritual activities, right? No loss. Or even for just materially good activities, no loss. Although actually the devotees don't place much emphasis on any material benefit that we might accrue, because ultimately what happens with it? What happens? Poof, gone. Right? 1 minute everybody's telling you what a good fellow you are, right? And then the next minute they're telling you you're a demon, right? If you're a mum, right? Your kids are telling you what a good mum you are, and then they disobey you and do what they want to do, right? Or a dad too, for that matter. Okay, so Maharaj Nimi understood that one should perform pious activities immediately. But his guru said, no, wait, I've got to go and do a yajna for Indra. Right? So when Vasishtha came back and he saw that Nimi had performed the yajna without his presence, he was angry. Right? And so what did he say? He said, what is it? Let's have a look. Previous verse. Shishya, you are my Shishya, Vyatikramam, you have overstepped the bounds of etiquette and you've disobeyed my instruction to wait. Right? And so therefore, because you've offended your guru, I curse you to die. Gosh, if every guru had a disciple that didn't follow their instructions, they wouldn't have any disciples, would they? So that's, yeah, and why also? Pandita maninaha. You consider yourself to be a great pandit, so you consider yourself to be better than your guru, so therefore, right, what does that tell us? What does that tell us, do you think? What's the lesson to be learnt in that verse that we just recited? Do you think? What comes to mind immediately?
Well, he's partly right, because you're not meant to think you know better than spiritual life.
Yes, you should follow the order of the Guru. Right? Guru avagya. Right? What's that? It's the third offence in chanting Hare Krishna. It's to disobey the order of the Guru. So he's right. Right? We were talking about this the other day at Brahma Kun's place. Lord Balarama, when he went on pilgrimage, Balarama decided that Balarama was a little upset about the conflict between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. He didn't like it, right? Because he had friends on both sides. He was sympathetic to both sides, right? Confirmed. Confirmed by the door. That's the door, right? That noise? It sounds like somebody saying, oh. Right. So anyway, Balarama didn't like it. And so therefore, because he didn't want to take sides, he went on pilgrimage. Right? Because in the course of his pilgrimage, he went to Nimi Maharaj. And at that time, the sages were already at Nimi Maharaj performing their, this is before the Bhagavatam, I guess, has been recited, right? And they'd appointed Ramaharshan Sutta as the one of the well, he was like the chairman of the assembly, right? And when there's a performance of yagyas, there are different yajaman, right, who do all of the puja and everything, purohit. Well, no, actually, the yajaman is the one who is the patron, who instigates the yajna. And the purohit is the one who does the yajna. But within the Vedic culture, or within the yajna, with the culture of yajna, there is the Acharya, right? Or well, in this case, I guess, what's his name? Ramaharshan Sutta. Although Ramaharshan Sutta was actually reciting the Vedas, right? It's described. But very often in the performance of yajna, there are senior members of the assembly who keep an eye on everything and make sure that everything is being done properly, right? So anyway, Ramaharshan Sutta was given this very prominent position to sit on the Brahmasan, it's described, Brahmanasan, right? The asana for the Brahmanas, or for the head of the head reciter of the Vedas in this particular case. So, Ramaharshan Sutta was the son of a Kshatriya father and a Brahmana mother. So, mixed caste, pratiloma, it's described, different descriptions. we're all I anyway. Our caste is Mlecha. Right? So that's something else. Right? Which we disregard, right? Because ultimately, transcendental or spiritual knowledge transcends caste, right? But in any case, it is a consideration, as we'll discuss. It is a consideration. So, Rama Mahashan Sutta being appointed as the chairman, if you like, everybody else stood up when Lord Balarama came, but Rama Mahashan Sutta didn't. Right? Didn't know how to respond to the occasion. I kind of could relate to it, you know, if my Guru Maharaj came into the temple room right now, right, you're sitting on the vyasa, you're giving class, what do? Everybody else stands up, or everybody pays their obeisances, but you're stuck in an awkward position, right? But what's the etiquette? What's the right etiquette? Offer obeisances. Even if you're sitting on the big seat, get up and offer your obeisances. That's the proper etiquette. But what did Rama Mahashan Sutta do? Or what did he not do? Didn't offer his obeisances. So what was Balarama's response? Got angry a little bit. And he touched him with the kusha grass. Just touched him with the kusha grass and killed him. And he said, you're pratiloma. And because of pride, in this particular case, because of pride, you were disrespectful. Well, which is very interesting in this particular case, because Vasishta's cursing Nimi for the same offence, pretty much, right? You became proud, pandita manina. You became proud of your learning. You disobeyed my instruction. I'll kill you, or you drop dead. Very interesting, right? Very interesting. These things. There's a lot of repetitiveness in the Bhagavatam. Right. So, how did the sages at Nimi Maharaj react when Balarama killed Rama Mahashan Sutta? How did they react? They said, what have you done, Balarama, Lord Balarama? You've killed the chief of our assembly, and we just benedict him with long life and good health, and what are we going to do? But respectfully, very interesting in this exchange between Balarama and the sages of Nimi Maharaj. It wasn't like they weren't being critical of Balarama, they were just more, what are we going to do now? And what was Balarama's response? He said, I'll bring him back to life if you want. They said, no. Because they understood he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so if he wants to kill somebody, then obviously that's okay, right? And so they said, well, actually they asked for a benediction, and they said, there's a demon who comes here on a monthly basis and desecrates our yajna shala. Can you kill him? And they encouraged him to continue what he was already doing, and that he didn't really need to do, and that was continue on pilgrimage. Right? Just to set an example. killing of brahmanas or killing of devotees is not a, it should be atoned for, right? The sages also worked out, they appointed then the son of Rama Maharshi Sutta to be the speaker, right? And with the understanding that the son is the equivalent of the father, the representative of the father, then Rama Maharshi Sutta lives on in the auspicious actions of the son. So problem solved. Problem solved. And dealt with very respectfully. It wasn't that the sages got upset. Balarama said, "Oh, what have you done? This terrible action." Because they understood. They stood up when Balaram entered the arena. Right? So effectively that means they're all devotees. Even Rama Maharshi Sutta was a devotee, just got a little bit covered over. And it's interesting here because we can see with Nimi Maharaj or even Vasishta, not really Nimi Maharaj when you think about it, because as is pointed out in the next verse 5, Nimi didn't actually commit an offence, right? He was performing a yajna, and he's a saintly king, as we discover, right? I think in this chapter, or coming up, Maharaj Nimi is visited by the Nava-yogendras, right? And the Nava-yogendras instruct Maharaj Nimi on the practice of bhakti. So Maharaj Nimi is a devotee. That's why he wanted to... And isn't it interesting? He criticizes his guru, right? Which ordinarily also would not be appropriate, right? Not appropriate. Just as the sages of Naimisharanya didn't criticize Balaram for killing Rama Sutta, right? So Maharaj Nimi criticized Vasishta. And why? Why? What was the quality or the characteristic that Vasishta Muni exhibited that Maharaj Nimi criticized? Lobha, greed. Right? What is it? Kama, krodha, lobha. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, Krishna says one has to avoid lust, anger, and greed. These are the three gateways to degradation. Right? 3 gateways to degradation. And why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it? Ya Shastra, was it Yana Shastra Utsrijya? If you don't follow the positive instruction is one has to study the Shastra and learn the principles of self-control and of self-regulation, right? To then avoid Kam, Krodh, and Lobha. Are you familiar with these things? 3 things? Have you heard of them? Kam, Krodh, Lobha? You've heard of them, huh? You may have even experienced them occasionally. Right? And So what? And why they're dangerous is because they bind us in the bodily concept of life. Calm, lust, and krodha, anger, because when calm is frustrated, we become angry. Right? Is that right? Have you experienced that? You didn't get something and you become angry. Not just angry, furious. Huh? Very, very dangerous, because it puts you then even more in the bodily concept of life. Right? And then the other one here, which is, all of these are dangers for devotees actually. Right? All of them are dangers or risks. We can risk our total spiritual life by associating with Kam, Krodha and Lobha. And why then, Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita that we have to understand the Shastra, because within the Shastra comes the recommendations and the guidelines and the systems ultimately for controlling these three urges, right? What is it? Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam. So vega, pushings. I just got a push from my mobile phone. We're all being pushed around by our phones, right? This is a modern calm crowed lobe. It comes out of the phone, out of the iPad. And I joke not. It's serious stuff, right? You know, the manufacturers of these devices know how to push us. Well, actually push and pull. So calm crowed lobe. So Maharaj Nimi is saying to Vasishta, you curse me, but I curse you, because Nimi's motivation was pure. His motivation wasn't to get any material benefit. And of course that's Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye. Mama Janmani Jamanishware Bhagavad Bhakti Ahoitiki Twai. Ahoitiki. Lord Chaitanya demonstrates the mood of a devotee. Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim. Right? That I don't desire any of material things. I only want to be your servant. Ahoitiki Twai. Another verse, what is it? Gopi Bhatu Padakamalaya Dasa Das Anudas. Right? So the mood of Maharaj Nimi was, I want to perform the yajna for the benefit of myself, obviously, but for the benefit of everybody. This is the mood of a devotee. And benefit means not for material benefit, but purely for spiritual advancement. And with a desire for spiritual advancement, to serve Krishna, to serve the Guru, to serve the devotees. And because there's so much more pleasure in service, right, than getting anything else. I don't know if you've noticed. And Prabhupada makes a point in the Nectar of Devotion that, you know, we all are pushed or pulled by rasa, taste, right? And the enjoyment that we get out of what we do and what we do it for, right? Even sometimes how we do it. We just get pleasure from doing that. And you know, most people, it's a material pleasure, but usually based on some form of service. And so Prabhupada says, you know, serving yourself, serving others, serving your family, serving your country. Right? We get pleasure out of doing that kind of service. But Prabhupada makes a point that the ultimate pleasure is derived when we just do service to Krishna without any consideration for ourselves. Right? You know, the epitome of that I can think of is serving prasadam. Right? Are any of you cooks? One person nodding, two people nodding their head, three. Right? I used to cook. It's a fact that my wife laments about now. In fact, yesterday she said, "I'm sick of cooking, why don't you cook?" Let's see who wins. Because what I discovered was that a Chicharupa is a way better cook than me. But what I discovered from cooking was that there's a pleasure from cooking and serving others. Have you experienced that? Huh? Which is kind of like the epitome of service, right? It's not so much in eating what we've cooked ourselves, but the pleasure is there's greater pleasure in actually cooking and then giving to others and then seeing their pleasure. Right? This is called vicarious pleasure. Vicarious means enjoying through others. We're still enjoying, but we're enjoying that others are enjoying. Right? And the highest level of that enjoyment is when we're serving Krishna and we see that Krishna is enjoying, then we enjoy because he's enjoying. Right? And he's the reservoir of all pleasure, right? And also he doesn't mind sharing. Whereas the opposite, you know, when there's material, when we're motivated by calm, krodh, and lobh, it's I'm the enjoyer, and even sometimes I'm the enjoyer at the expense of all you other guys. Right? It becomes then very, very selfish. Whereas the mood of a devotee is very, very unselfish. Right? And so the devotee becomes happy when he sees others are happy. Even, it's interesting, isn't it? We see in the Shikshastika, Lord Chaitanya prays, even if I'm unhappy, but if you're happy, Krishna, I'm happy. Right? So a devotee doesn't mind embracing difficulty or struggle to please the devotees, to please the spiritual master, to please Krishna. Interesting, huh? Even puts aside their own personal pleasure or benefit entirely for the benefit of others, and they're still happy. This is why Krishna mentions in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the behavior of the devotees is inconceivable, unfathomable to the materialists. It's like night to the materialists. We get up early in the morning, right? And we chant Hare Krishna. And the materialist is thinking, what are you getting up so early for? And don't wake me up. Right? We're a bit like that too, right? The light goes on at 4 o'clock. Oh no, give me a break. Or the alarm clock goes off. Oh no, why me? Huh? But of course, if we get up and we chant Hare Krishna, then we think, oh, that's beautiful, right? So it's sacrifice. It actually is a sacrifice. But darkness for the materialist, that the devotee will give up everything for the pleasure of others and not for some material benediction, right? But only for spirit. But the interesting thing which is bewildering for the materialists and for some of the devotees is that even though the devotee gives up everything for the benefit of Krishna and for the benefit of the devotees and the benefit of the Guru, they get material facility, right? Devotees are looked after by Krishna. And they have material facility. And the materialists are saying, hey, what's going on here? You're not behaving like me, but you're still making progress. Right? And then they become envious. Right? Even devotees, sometimes, there was a verse that we did just the other day, and Prabhupada was making the point, because I forgot what. Anyway, something that I've read recently. I can't remember whether it was to do with Ramchandra's pastimes or not. Might have been. But Prabhupada makes the point, even in the devotee community there will be envy sometimes, because another devotee is making advancement, or another devotee might be prominent. Right? They didn't ask for the prominence, but they got it. But others are thinking, how come you got that? You don't deserve that, I deserve it. Right? You didn't do anything. Right? So, Maharaj Nimi, we can understand from this pastime, Maharaj Nimi performed the yajna because he understood the auspiciousness and the benefit broadly for everyone. And he wasn't that concerned about, and that's why he was eager to perform those activities, the yajna, but Vasishtha told him, don't do it until I get back. Right? But he went and did it anyway because he knew it was auspicious. So that's why Prabhupada says in the purport here, he didn't actually commit an offence. Vasishtha overreacted in cursing his disciple. And Maharaj Nimi could understand the motivation of Vasishtha in this situation. And that was, he went to the yajna, the Indra yajna, because he would get some material benefit. So there's a lesson here for us. You know, that devotional service should not be performed for getting benefits. Right? And of course the Bhagavatam teaches us right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam that material benefits that we get from the performance of yajna or from the performance of devotional service shouldn't be used for sense gratification. Right? And why we're recommended to be careful about kam, krodh and lobh and avoid them. That's why in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna warns us, kam, krodh, lobh are the gateways to hell. And we need to understand and this is the beauty, it's the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita really when you think about it. And the beauty of the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavad Gita, and why the Bhagavad Gita is, so valuable, is because within the Bhagavad Gita are given tips, especially for devotees, on how to be a devotee, how to become a devotee, but also how to remain a devotee. Huh? And it's interesting because as a devotee we may benefit materially. Right? It's very interesting. In the performance of the Rajasuya sacrifice, Maharaj Yudhisthira had a specific purpose for the performance of that yajna. Right? Does anybody know what Maharaj Yudhisthira's purpose was in performing the Rajasuya yajna? And who else? Huh? Himself, yes. But himself as what? Huh? Yes, he was the king of the world, but he was also a devotee. He was a devotee. And so he wanted to establish the fact that Krishna's devotees are looked after by Krishna. Right? and to glorify Krishna. Because, there's this notion that, a devotee should be a pauper, right? You should be a pauper. You shouldn't have any money. You shouldn't have any influence because you're a renunciate, right? But the story of Sudama Vipra is very interesting because Sudama Vipra was trying to be a devotee renunciate, right? And what happened? He gave Krishna some chip rice, and Krishna said, "Oh, delicious." Right? But then when he went home, boo, all opulence. Because Krishna wanted to teach him the lesson that, devotees are not necessarily paupers. Okay, they may be, but just because a devotee has wealth, influence, power, or whatever, doesn't mean that he's like every other materialist. Right? So a devotee doesn't accumulate wealth and influence and power and whatever to enjoy it for themselves. Right? That's right. And so Maharaj Nimi was performing the sacrifice for the benefit of everybody, which is what a devotee does. Right? What's the most important sacrifice? Sankirtan. Right. So that's why we go out on the streets. In Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya has made it easy to control calm, lobe, crowed. Or calm, crowed, lobe. That's the order, right? And how do we do it? By what? How do we control calm, crowed, lobe? Chant Hare Krishna. This is our process, right? Very simple. Well, actually, no, not that simple. Because very interesting. And why we study Shastra Utsrijya. What is it? Why? Huh? Maybe I should open that verse up. Hang on, I think I've got it here. Let's have a look. Shastra Vidim. Shastra Vidi. Yeah. Shastra Vidi. Yeah, got it. So, when we know the Shastra Vidi, the rules and regulations, or the recommendations of the Shastra, then within those guidelines is basically Varnashram, right? Actions according to Varna and Ashram. But for us, very specifically, the principles and the rules and regulations of bhakti. Right? Why the Nectar of Devotion is such an important book? Because Rupa Goswami outlines, here's how you be a devotee. And effectively, that activity elevates us from calm, crowed, lobe to what mode of good? And that comes usually from Raja, right? Rajas, right? So the engagement in devotional service, the rules of which we learn from the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and Nectar Devotion, elevate us from Raja to what mode? Sattva, to goodness, and beyond to Suddha Sattva, ideally, right? So Maharaj Nimi curses Vasishtha because of Vasishtha's being a bit greedy for material benefit, right? And we know that's the case because he was successful. He was successful in his curse, right? If he wasn't pure, he wouldn't have been able to curse his guru. Ouch. Right? I don't suggest that you consider cursing your guru. That's probably not a good idea. Better to learn from the previous verse that one should follow the order of the spiritual master. But very interesting, isn't it, that sometimes, even in a devotional setting, the senior may not be senior. Ironic, isn't it? And we see that with Bali Maharaj. Right? Acharya told him, don't give anything to Upendra. Don't give him anything. But did Bali Maharaj obey the order of his guru? No. He got in a little bit of trouble for doing that. But he got the blessing, the benediction, that the Lord would reside in his palace as the doorkeeper, right? And it's explained in the months of Chaturmasya, he would appear. So it's Chaturmasya now. Actually, today is the beginning of the second month of Chaturmasya. Strictly speaking, because we generally follow from the Purnima to the Purnima. But many devotees, and it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam and other places, that the month starts from the Ekadasi. So last Ekadasi, Chaturmasya started. This is the second Ekadasi since then, and so now's the second month of Chaturmasya. Followed by some, if you're following the Ekadasi system. Right? So, Bali Maharaj, because of his pure devotion, he was able to discern the inappropriateness of his guru's instructions, right? And Maharaj Nimi also. We don't really want to be in that position. That's why we have to be careful in choosing who's going to be our gurus. Right? Want to make sure that the guru doesn't give material instructions. And Nimi Maharaj is so advanced that he's able to perceive that in Vasishta, and so therefore understood that Vasishta told him not to perform the yajna because he wanted to go and get the benefits of performing the yajna for Indra. Right? Which is kind of a warning about, performing religious ceremonies and religious activities on behalf or, with others, but for the purpose of accruing material things. Make sense? Yeah, we don't perform devotional, but it can be a trap. It can be a trap for devotees sometimes. Well, you become prominent. People tell you what a good guy you are. They give you money, right? But one has to take those gifts as if one is a servant of Krishna and one is accepting them on Krishna's behalf, right? So, when Prabhupada came to Melbourne and the journalists were saying, how come people are treating you like God? And they bow down. Right? And what was Prabhupada's response? He said, I'm not God, but I'm like the tax collector. Right? I collect, but in my case, I collect obeisances. Right? Prabhupada collects obeisances. But he says, I know those obeisances are not for me. They're meant for Krishna. And so I offer them to Krishna. So a devotee has to be very careful about not avoiding material things, because that's Phalgu Vairagya, false renunciation. But one should be engaged in Yukta Vairagya, which means engaging these things, the money, the glorification, the appreciation even, and the other benefits that might come, because Krishna looks after his devotees. Look at Yudhishthira, look at the Pandavas. They were rewarded with great opulence. They became the king of the the emperor, Maharaj Yudhisthira was the emperor of the whole world. That's why one of the reasons why the Rajasuja sacrifice was being performed. But they were doing it on behalf of Krishna. Right? But still, even they were challenged. Right? Even in the pursuit of their devotional service to Krishna, they were challenged. So we have to be careful to ensure that what we do and what we receive is received on Krishna's behalf and used in benefit for everybody. But don't be surprised if there are challenges, as we see here with Vasishtha. Because, we know that Vasishtha Muni is actually a very elevated, advanced character, right? But still, they were challenged. Right? And we see that all throughout the Bhagavatam. Challenges for the devotees. And therefore why the Bhagavad Gita and understanding the Shastra Vidhi, the rules and regulations, and the parameters within which we should act is important, and we do that by studying Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar Devotion. That's our Shastra, and within which the Vidhi, the rules and regulations, are given. That's the means by which we can conquer, if that's what we're doing. Krishna's the conqueror, actually. By engaging us in his service, we're protected from Kam, Krodh, and Lobha. So these are the lessons I think we can learn from this. Some lessons we can learn from this. These couple of verses from the Bhagavatam. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions, questions even, on any of these points?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. You mentioned how we should be wary of the benefits of bhakti, and we know that we shouldn't become attached to even the benefits because they could hinder our advancement. So, but sometimes we find that because of material distress, we have to sort of
material
distress.
Because
of material distress, we have to encourage ourselves so we become more attached to the benefits of bhakti and spiritual life. So how, in that situation, how can we remain detached from them?
Well, one of the benefits of bhakti is relief from distress. Right? One of the benefits of bhakti is the multiplication of distress. Right? I've told this story many times, but it's funny, but true. Anxiety for Krishna is recommended by Bhaktivedanta Thakur and others, right? And so it's not unusual to find distress in the performance of bhakti. Anxiety for Krishna. And in fact, there are some devotees that you can associate and they'll help magnify that, that anxiety. And I'm thinking of my dear friend Korma. There's this saying, Bhaktivedanta Thakur said, if you can find somebody selling Krishna anxiety in a marketplace, then buy it at any cost, right? And so the joke, at least amongst my friends, is we know somebody who's selling Krishna anxiety. In fact, he's a wholesale merchant. That was Korma. Just go in the kitchen with Korma and cook a Sunday feast. But the funny thing is, we may laugh about that, but we value that so much. Right? We may laugh about it, but at the same time, we value it because that opportunity to serve, even though stress and anxiety may come from it, it actually gives us the relief from material distress and anxiety. And so at the end of a festival, at the end of a feast, at the end of a yajna or whatever it is that we've done, we've got Janmashtami coming up. So that's a lot of anxiety for the devotees. Right? But why do they do it every year? Why do they keep coming back? Right? Because at the end, I'm peaceful. I'm happy. I'm not disturbed by material desires. I'm not pushed by material anxiety. It's Vaikuntha, right? So now, and so therefore Lord Chaitanya says, if your happiness is my distress, that's my happiness, right? So we don't mind anxiety or distress in the context of service to Krishna, right? Because we know ultimately that will bring the release or the relief from material. Now, and so therefore this is a little bit tricky because, we like the Ananda. Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnam ritasvardhanam. It's the nectar for which we're always anxious, right, when we chant Hare Krishna, right? But what happens when the nectar's not there? What do? No good, give it up. I've had it. Right? No. We embrace the difficulty, even though there may not be any immediate Ananda. Because Ananda is ultimately not the goal. The goal is service. And service with the right mood, right? Not, I've done so much service, but now how come you aren't recognizing me? We've done so much service. Why aren't you telling us what jolly good fellows we are? We need to have an announcement at the morning program for all the devotees who do service so they feel happy. We praise the book distributors. So many books and so many book points. Jai Haribol. Right? But we're not distributing books just so everybody says Jai Haribol. Right? We're doing it because we know that pleases Prabhupada. And it's a measure of our success also. So, the interesting thing about devotional service is that it ultimately gives us anandam buddhivardhanam pratipurnam amritas vardhanam means it increases nectar. The chanting of Hare Krishna increases the nectar, right? But Rupa Goswami says sometimes chanting Hare Krishna gives rise to, because of our ignorance, what would ordinarily be sweet, we taste as being bitter, right? So in the beginning, as we practice devotional service, the practice of devotional service may appear to be bitter, right? The example that Prabhupada gives and Bhaktivedanta Thakur gives is the person who's suffering from jaundice, right? And one of the characteristics of jaundice is that when you taste something sweet, what does it taste like? What do you think it tastes like?
Bitter, sour.
Bitter. So even though sugar is naturally sweet, a person who's jaundiced, when they taste the sugar, it's like, ooh. But sugar, especially sugar candy, is used as a cure for jaundice. So the medicine tastes bitter, but actually it's sweet. Right? So, yes, we perform bhakti, and as a result of the performance and chanting Hare Krishna and everything, as a result, we experience ananda. Have you experienced that? You happy chanting? Yeah. What happens when you chant, we discussed this the other day, what happens when you chant Hare Krishna, especially in kirtan? What happens? How do you feel? Huh? You do, yes. But how do you feel? How do you feel when you're in a kirtan? Happy. Yeah, and then what happens? Start dancing. Yeah. And then you start making noises. Haribo! Or you start shouting or whatever. And if you're really advanced, you roll on the floor. And don't care for what anybody thinks. Right? You chant Hare Krishna so much that you lose all sense of self-consciousness. And then you start strutting around like a peacock. Right? And everybody thinks, this guy's crazy, who does he think he is? Right? So, there's a great deal of satisfaction and ananda, right? Pratipurnam amritas vardhanam. It increases this relish, this taste. But sometimes it doesn't, because we're conditioned. Right? We shouldn't be too attached. And so it mentions actually in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee isn't disturbed whether the distress is there or not, or whether happiness is there or not. Right? We know that comes. Occasionally we may be bewildered by our conditioning, but we stick to the bhakti. Right? I don't know whether that answers your question or not.
It does. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. Don't be too discouraged if you're not super duper happy all the time. Right? You will be from time to time, which confirms the validity of bhakti, but the challenges and the difficulties that we might face, calm, crowed, lobe, for example, are also testimony and the confirmation of the validity of the material world and how powerful it is. Right? And how much we need to be careful in order to, remain within that Vaikuntha realm, Vaikuntha world. Yadu? Sure.
Vashishta is an interesting character because
Vashishta? Yeah.
He's prone to a lot of austerity, and then he has these outbursts of anger with Vishwamitra and now with his disciple Nimi, irrational, like excessive anger. So that sort of teaches us that too much austerity may not be the right direction.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, too much indulgence or complacency in Krishna consciousness is also not desirable. So we always have to be sure that we're on some sort of middle path
balance
between the two.
Yes, very good point. Getting the balance, that's the hard part.
And we can easily tip into one or the other, where we get austere and lose the purpose, or become very complacent and just comfortable chanting our rounds with not very much attention or focus. Oh, everything's fine. I'm a devotee.
Yeah, that's it's and why material benefits are dangerous, right? Why material benefits are dangerous for a devotee, and so why the devotees keep themselves living simply and making sure that whatever opulence they have, that's reserved for Krishna, not for themselves. Good point. Mahatmaji, how are you going to ask a question about the class when
Hare
you
Krishna,
weren't here?
Aniruddha Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful class. I was hearing about that.
You were hearing it.
Sunday feast and kurmas presenting.
Ah, you heard about it. Thank you,
My
Mahatmaji.
question is, it's a genuine question, how to improve chanting? Because they say if you don't cry, if no tears don't come, you have a heart of a, you know,
How to improve your chanting?
steel heart.
Can I answer that question when I've actually managed to do that? But we know, we've got...
Give us some hints, some points.
It's fairly simple. Say the words, hear the mantra. Just do that. And if you can do that, bravo. More than bravo. And so, you know, the physical attributes of chanting are pretty straightforward. The hard part is managing the mind. Right? And I know in my case, almost impossible. No, not almost. Impossible. Right? Especially Aniruddha means, Aniruddha is the Lord of the mind. Right? And the mind, Aniruddha means unstoppable. You can't stop the mind. Right? But when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we engage the mind in the absorption in the sound vibration. And then with that engagement, with that control, right, effectively hearing the mantra, we control the mind. And then the mind can be used in Krishna's service. So, you know, in principle, hear, and if the mind wanders, bring it back.
How to bring back?
How? Hear the mantra. Revert back to the first instruction. Well, the second is, first instruction is chant, second instruction is hear, third instruction, if the mind wanders, refer back to the second instruction.
Can we go to the form of Krishna? We can think of the Krishna form and pastimes.
My experience is there are many things you could do while chanting. But better refer back to the second instruction. But yes, you know, my experience is, limited experience, not very. If I'm chanting with some attention, then automatically I'll start thinking of Radha Vallabha or Gaunitai or Jagannath Balarama Subhadra. That's on the rare day that I actually pay attention to the mantra. Then automatically remembrance of Krishna. That Krishna will appear. For you it may be a different form, but for me anyway, if I'm actually chanting, and I could be in Juhu or Adelaide or wherever, if I'm chanting with a little bit of attention, right, then I'll think of the deities that I've, you know, had the good fortune to serve. So that will happen, yes. Naturally it will happen. But try to force things in, yeah, that's hard. Because they won't stay there anyway. You know, we used to see devotees chanting, they'd have pictures, right, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Too much of an imposition, right? But things will naturally arise if we chant. And some of them we best ignored, a lot of it best ignored, just revert back to hearing. Well, is it, what do you think, Yeti? Yeah. Hey.
He used to be total anxiety. So he'd organise that every possible preparation was cooked for Krishna and then cook the midnight feast himself. And so every type of pakora, and then every type style of cooking, Indian cooking, Chinese cooking, Mexican cooking, you'd make sure someone was making tacos. And then, so he was taking all this anxiety for Krishna. It's interesting because his feasts were the best ever, like, because he put all that anxiety and effort and stress into it. But eventually, Janmashtami was getting bigger and bigger every year, and eventually there was one Janmashtami, I think it was getting too much for him, and he erupted at Radhacharan because the 4:10 in the morning offering was late. And then Radhacharan answered back, and then Kuma went home for the day.
We didn't see him all day.
We didn't see him the rest of the day, so the rest of us had to pick up the pieces. So I guess anxiety is also another thing that we should take some anxiety for Krishna, but not overdo it where we become where we become offensive to others.
Hey, what? That's something to meditate on, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thanks for listening. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I will. One question? Yeah. That's what Prabhupada says. He was looking for some gifts. You know, it's not stated specifically in the verse or the purport, but Prabhupada indicates that that's what the problem was. So the detail it's not immediately obvious.